Caden Blackthorne had not always been a cold man. There was a time, not so long ago, when the people of Silvercrest Pack would speak of their Alpha King with something warmer than respect. They would talk about the way he laughed during the harvest festivals, loud and unguarded, the kind of laugh that made the older women shake their heads and smile. They would talk about the way he used to walk through the village without guards, stopping to help farmers carry grain, bending down to speak to children at eye level so they would not have to look up at him. That was before Elara. Or rather, that was before she left. She was not what anyone had expected for their king. She was half-human, quiet in the way that deep water is quiet, with silver-streaked hair that she never bothered to style, and eyes the color of fog sitting over a forest at dawn. She had no powerful family name, no political connections, no title. She was simply the girl who had wandered into the territory one winter, half frozen and completely unafraid, and Caden's wolf had taken one look at her and gone absolutely still, the way wolves go still when they have found exactly what they were searching for, without knowing they were searching. He had made her his mate within the season. And for 2 years, something in the Silvercrest Palace had been different, lighter. His beta, Rowan, often said that the king smiled more in those 2 years than he had in the 10 before them combined. Elara moved through the palace quietly, learning everything, asking questions that were small and precise, and always about the people, never about the politics. She planted herbs in the courtyard garden. She remembered the names of every servant's children. She sat beside Caden in the evenings, not because ceremony required it, but because she wanted to, her shoulder against his arm, reading while he reviewed pack reports. Then one autumn morning, she was gone. No fight had come before it. No argument, no warning. Caden woke to cold sheets and a scent already fading, and when he reached for her side of the bed, his hand found nothing but emptiness. Her wardrobe still held most of her clothes. Her books were still stacked on the nightstand. The only thing missing, aside from Elara herself, was the mate bond ring, the simple silver band he had placed on her finger the night she agreed to be his Luna. It was sitting on the nightstand, perfectly placed, like a period at the end of a sentence. Rowan organized a search that lasted 3 days. Trackers combed the forests, the mountain roads, the border crossings. Nothing. It was as though she had stepped through a door that no one else could see, and it had closed behind her. Caden stood at the edge of the territory on the 3rd evening, looking out at the tree line, and his wolf made a sound inside him that had no name in any human language, not a howl, something quieter and much worse than that. He turned around and walked back to the palace. He did not speak about her again. The years that followed were productive ones for Silvercrest, if you measured productivity in land gained and enemies made cautious. Caden was a better king without his heart, in the technical sense. More efficient, more precise, completely unbothered by sentiment in negotiations. Rival packs that had tested his borders learned quickly not to test them again. Trade agreements were signed. The territory expanded. His name became something people said carefully. But the palace was different now. The herb garden in the courtyard went to seed, and then to weeds. Rowan started filing small things without mentioning them, things he would have told the king about before. Small kindnesses, small jokes, because the king had stopped responding to small things. The pack elders came to Caden at the end of the 1st year. They sat across from him at the long council table and explained, with great diplomatic care, that a king needed a Luna, that the bond was severed, that life had to continue, that there were several excellent candidates from powerful families who would bring tremendous political benefit to the pack. Caden listened to all of it, then he said no, and left the room. At the start of the 2nd year, the Eastern Alpha sent his daughter, Seraphine, to Silvercrest, under the polite fiction of a diplomatic visit. She was beautiful in the way that people are beautiful, when they have been told about it their whole lives. Confident, prepared, dressed for the occasion. She sat across from Caden at a formal dinner and said all the correct things. His wolf did not stir. He was polite, distant, and had her escorted home before the 2nd course arrived. He sent a written apology to the Eastern Alpha. It was very well worded. At year 3, a noble family from the Northern Highlands offered their daughter. Caden did not attend the introduction. He sent Rowan with a decline. At year 4, 2 separate families tried coordinating a visit together, apparently believing that presenting multiple options at once would make refusal more difficult. Caden canceled the visit 2 days before it was scheduled. He did not give a reason, because he felt none was required. At year 5, the Council of Alphas formally intervened. 7 senior leaders signed a petition and delivered it in person, which was considered a significant gesture of collective seriousness. Caden read every word of the petition carefully, folded it in half, and tore it down the middle. He placed the 2 halves on the table in front of the council and thanked them for their time. No one raised the subject officially for the next 2 years. 7 women had been brought before him in various ways over 7 years. His wolf had looked at every single one of them and gone quiet, not with recognition, not with interest, not with anger, just stillness. The particular stillness of something that is not choosing and is not searching, something that is simply waiting, with no end date and no explanation, certain in a way that had no rational basis whatsoever. Rowan never said anything about it directly, but sometimes, late at night, when the palace was quiet and Caden was still at his desk long after he should have slept, Rowan would bring him tea without being asked, and stand there for a moment, before leaving. It was the closest either of them came to discussing it. It was a border market trader who changed everything, in the way that enormous things are so often changed, casually, without ceremony, by someone with no idea what they are doing. The trader had come through the Silvercrest Eastern Gate with a cartload of mountain goods, dried herbs, carved wood, smoked meat, and he was telling anyone who would listen about a peculiar little village called Ashvale, high in the cold mountains 3 days' ride from the border. A quiet place, he said. Good people. There was a woman there who healed people with herb remedies. Remarkable ones, he said. Cured his travel sickness in under an hour. Silver-streaked hair. Didn't give her name to strangers. A little boy always nearby, maybe 6 years old, dark-haired, with the most unusual golden-ringed eyes he had ever seen on a child. The guard who heard this said nothing at the time. He told Rowan that evening. Rowan went to Ashvale alone, quietly, telling no one, including the king. He spent 1 day in the village. He came back with a photograph, blurry, taken from a distance, the light not quite right. He sat with it on his desk for a long time. Then he walked into Caden's study and placed it face up between the king's hands without a word. The photograph showed a woman standing in a cottage doorway, arms loosely folded, watching something outside the frame. A small boy stood beside her, his head reaching her hip, squinting into the afternoon light. The woman's hair had more silver in it than before. She looked tired in the way people look tired when they have been working hard for a long time and have simply learned to live with it. She also looked real, alive, present. Caden did not speak for a full minute. Then he said, very quietly, "Get the horses." They rode out that same night. Caden, Rowan, and 2 guards. No royal banners, no announcement. 3 days of cold mountain roads, the kind that narrowed until the horses had to go single file, and the wind came at angles that made conversation impossible anyway. Ashvale was small. Stone buildings, wood smoke, the smell of pine, and something herbal underneath it. The kind of village that had existed for a long time without needing to be noticed by anyone. The cottage was at the edge of it, set slightly apart from the others. There was a small garden out front, winter bare but clearly tended. The door was plain wood. Smoke came from the chimney. Caden dismounted and walked to the door alone. Ilara opened it before he knocked. She stood in the doorway with her arms crossed and looked at him the way she used to look at things that she had already thought through from every possible angle. She did not look surprised. She did not look afraid. She looked like a woman who had known this moment was coming and had decided, somewhere along the way, to simply let it arrive. "You weren't supposed to find us," she said. Caden looked at her for a moment. "You left a mate bond ring on a nightstand," he said. "What did you think would happen?" She stepped back from the door. He took that as an invitation and walked in. The boy was already asleep. The cottage was small and warm, herbs drying in bundles from the ceiling beams, a fire going, 2 mismatched chairs near the hearth. Ilara sat in one of them. Caden sat in the other. For a while neither of them spoke, because some silences have weight to them that needs a moment to settle before words are useful. Then Ilara spoke. She had overheard something, she said, about 6 weeks before she left. Two of his senior advisors, in conversation with a noble family whose daughter they had been quietly promoting as a potential Luna. She had not meant to hear it. She had simply been in the wrong corridor at the wrong time, and the door had not been fully closed. They had spoken about her as a problem, a liability, a half-human Omega with no political value, who had inexplicably gotten herself mated to the Alpha King and was now standing in the way of something much more strategically sensible. They had spoken about the accident 2 months before. Ilara had been thrown from a horse on a trail ride, the saddle strap having come undone, and one of them had said it was a shame it had not gone further. She had understood, very clearly, what that meant. She had not gone to Kaidan with it. She had sat with it for 6 weeks, alone, turning it over in her mind, trying to find the version of events in which she told him and it ended well. What she kept arriving at was this: telling him would force him to choose between his mate and the political stability of his pack. She knew what she was. She knew what she wasn't. She was not worth a war inside his own council. She was not worth the damage it would do to his authority, his alliances, the people who depended on him. She had loved him too much to make him choose. So she had left before they could arrange a better accident. She had been 3 weeks pregnant when she walked out of the territory. Kaidan was quiet for a long time after she finished. The fire made small sounds. Outside, the wind moved through the pines. The boy, her son, their son, made a soft sound in his sleep from the back room. "Did you think?" Kaidan said finally, and his voice was very even, the way his voice got when he was feeling something too large to let any of it show, "that I didn't know what you were worth?" Ilara looked at the fire. "I thought you might not know until it was too late to matter. You should have let me prove it." She didn't answer, because he was right, and she had known it for 7 years, and being right about something, and being able to do differently, are sometimes two separate things entirely. Kaidan returned to Silvercrest without Ilara. He told her he would come back for her when it was safe, and he meant it in the specific, literal way that he meant every word he ever said. It took him 2 weeks. He was quiet about it in the way that made it worse for the people involved. The 2 advisors were called in separately, told precisely what he knew, and given the choice between exile and something considerably less comfortable than exile. They chose exile. The noble family lost every title and landholding they possessed, stripped through entirely legal channels that Kaidan's legal counsel processed with remarkable speed. The guard captain who had known and looked the other way was removed from his post and replaced before the week was out. Rowan watched all of it and said nothing except, once, at the end of the 2nd week, "Ready?" Kaidan was already putting on his riding coat. Went back to Ashvale with a royal carriage and no announcement. He walked to the cottage door and this time he knocked. When Ilara opened it, he did something that no one who knew him professionally would have believed was possible. He knelt. One knee, in the mud outside her cottage door, the Alpha King of Silvercrest Pack, looking up at her. He told her what he had done. He told her that the people who had wanted her gone were gone themselves now, permanently. He told her that the pack had been informed that their Luna was returning, and that the response had been, he paused briefly, searching for the right word, relieved. He told her that their son had a place in the pack, a real one, and that whenever Emran was ready for what came with that place, it would be there for him. He told her he was not asking her to come back for him. He told her she could live in the palace, or in a cottage at the edge of the territory, or anywhere in between, and he would build whatever she wanted. He told her the only thing that was not negotiable was that she stop making decisions about her own value without him in the conversation. Ilara stood in the doorway and looked at him for a long moment, the fog-colored eyes, the tired face, the silver hair. Then she turned her head back into the cottage and said, "Emran, come here, please." Small feet on the stone floor. A dark-haired boy appeared at her side, rubbing one eye, looking at the man kneeling in the mud outside with an expression of thorough 6-year-old confusion. Ilara put her hand on her son's shoulder. "This is your father," she said. Emran looked at Kaidan for a moment. Then he looked up at his mother. Then he looked back at Kaidan. "Why is he in the mud?" he asked. Kaidan laughed. It was loud and completely unguarded, the kind of laugh that the older women of Silvercrest Pack used to shake their heads and smile at, a long time ago. Ilara watched him laugh, and felt something in her chest shift. The way ice shifts in early spring, when the temperature changes and the whole frozen surface begins, quietly and without drama, to let go. She stepped back from the door. "Come inside," she said, "both of you." And Caden stood up from the mud, took his son's hand, and walked through the door.